It's Corinna Midgley, and I've been working with now to the CCGs to produce some guidance around the new MAAR chart. This clip is all about why there's been a change in the Pan London MAAR chart, what has changed in the chart. So I'm just going to highlight some of the changes. The first one is that there's a change in chart numbering. So the PRN injectable medications chart is now chart number 1, with the syringe pump chart number 2, and a crisis chart number 3. And the reason for that is that the PRN injectables are the most commonly used authorization charts, so we thought it would be best to be first in the suite. There is more space given for the patient's name. All the acronyms have been removed from the MAAR's charts. The allergies box has been reworded because we do need people to record all allergies, not just drug allergies. There's been a change in the descriptor of the writer of the MAAR's chart, just to clarify that you are an authorizer. When you're authorizing onto a MAAR's chart, you are not a prescriber at that point. The prescribing is about getting the medicines, and the authorizing is about giving authority to the district nurse or other clinical visitor to give the medicine. And although there is an excellent procedural guidance and policy guidance document separately to support the MAAR's chart, the Pan London team have developed a single page sheet on the very key points that they want the authorizer to be aware of, which we'll go into in another clip. So just on the actual charts, you can see that there is now a tick box if more than one chart is going to be used, and that's really helpful because you could only use one sheet per chart, so sometimes you will need to go onto a second chart. They've removed the need for or the instruction to call for help if the patient receives more than 3 doses, really because what we all want is that you call for help whenever your patient's in trouble, that you don't have to wait for 3 PRNs before summoning help. They've added that the maximum 24-hour dose is for PRN doses only, because there have been some confusion about, are you able to give drugs, PRN drugs, in addition to any existent syringe pump? Yes, you can, and this chart is just for those additional doses rather than summation of doses. The pain box now specifies that it's for pain. The opioid that you're going to prescribe, authorize, is for pain plus or minus breathlessness. And the boxes have all been reformatted, so there's more space to write drug names and drug dosages. And some of these arrows just illustrate these key points. Okay. Chart 2, which is the 24-hour continuous infusion or syringe pump authorization chart. We now have a tick box added to that chart as well to indicate if there's more than one pump in use and more than one chart in use. That's the major change. And then in chart 3, which is the more rarely used crisis/emergency chart, we have just changed one word in the regular dose section to go from dose range to dose, because in this chart you're normally giving a single dose. Each of these charts will have a separate clip, so we can talk you through how to complete chart 1 separately, chart 2 separately, chart 3. The charts 4 and 5 are ones that our nurses use to make sure that the stock balance is correct within the house. And there have been some small changes on that chart, essentially to make it easier for them to use. So it's now a wider chart. It's changed from portrait to landscape, and some of the headings have changed somewhat. It's probably easier to illustrate the change by looking at the chart itself. So I'll just let you read the slide and then move on to the chart itself. So here is the chart itself. So as I said, this is a chart that the nurses who are administering the medicine itself, this is where they will be recording what's been used and what's been left behind. And for those of you familiar with version 3, this is a more spaced out, clearer chart. And the final chart, which talks about what device is being removed, the word T34 is removed because locally, as a locality, as Pan London, our T34 syringe pumps are in the process of being replaced by safer pumps. We use Bodycard T in this area, which for those of you familiar with the pumps, it's very, very similar, but slightly different and just named differently. And finally, key changes in the policy and procedural guidance. Both of them are rather big documents, hence the need for the key points document I mentioned earlier. But the good thing is that they're easy reads. The language is more consistent. The documents specifically talk about use of anticipatory medicines and syringe pumps in primary care. There's a helpful glossary. There's a section on electronic and wet signatures and how to make them safe and acceptable, which will be developed in the How to Complete a MAAR chart clips. A reminder that the injectable MAAR charts are just for injectable medication, subcut stroke IM. They are not for topical analgesics, nor are they for fentanyl or butrans patches. A separate form is used for those drugs if they are to be administered by a district nurse. But there's a tick box on the injectable MAAR charts to flag that they are present and being used concurrently. And then a clarification of terms. So the prescriber prescribes the drug, the authorizer completes the MAAR chart and authorises the medicines to be given. Ideally, the prescriber should be the person who completes the MAAR chart, but sometimes these roles are separate. Ideally, they're the same person. And the authorisers have responsibility for what is written on the charts, of course. And then just that reaffirmation that on chart 1, the PRN chart, the maximum 24-hour dose cited just is for PRNs. It doesn't include what's being put into the syringe pump. And that's the end of this clip.